Another one of the questions that we've been asked is how has Sikhi helped us during COVID-19 or during this period in our lives?
Faith has just given me a bit of a, Sikhi, that actually, you know what, there are lots of things beyond our control. There's a universal power beyond us. We're just a tiny part of this universe, something like that, one little particle, that's it. And there's some things that we can't, things happen beyond us. We've got no kind of control over that. And that's where I've kind of turned to faith and actually, you know what, kind of, I let go. When Darshan, you were talking about that surrendering, that actually, we don't have to have a need to control or know the answer. Sometimes asking the question is a lot more healthy. We might not have the answer to it, but for me, it's that kind of, some things are beyond our control and my control, and I can only control what I explain and how I make sense of it myself and with my family and with my children as well. So I've opened up lots of conversations about loss and death and why things are happening the way they are with my kids, and kind of just like, prayer is really important. It's a way to really ground us at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, my children do pray. They will say, we're praying in the morning, we're praying in the evening just before we go to bed. They quite haven't grasped that, you can pray any time, but for them, that's their little rituals they do, waking up in the morning and going to sleep. So I think that gives them a bit more kind of a way to ground themselves in their mind in some way and their body as well. My little 5-year-old son, like today, he was like, I can't remember what happened, but just before this conversation, he was like, we've got to medicate. He calls meditation medicate. Yes.
Oh, got that right, hasn't he?
Yes. So he's like, we've got to medicate. And I was like, yes, we've got to meditate. Yeah, just before we go to bed. But it just amused me because he said medicate, because he doesn't understand. Some do use meditation, sometimes the words and stuff, but it made me laugh that somehow they are able to grasp it and it becomes part of their routine, because it becomes our family ritual, I suppose, or their part of their bedtime routine.
I think what you said about prayer really kind of struck me, because I hadn't thought about it, but the first thing that we did as a family when we found out what was happening, we sat in a circle and we held hands. It was just me and the kids, and we did some Simran and we did a little prayer. And I think, and I hadn't realized until you just talked about prayer, how comforting it was to be able to connect with somebody, that kind of the one that's beyond, the one that's all powerful, to kind of just help or just whatever, just a kind of connection. Because obviously this lack of control is very scary.
Of course,
but I guess the praying kind of helped me to feel maybe less of a sense of this lack of control. Actually, we can speak to this being who's created this decision to for this all to happen. It felt reassuring that I could be like, Vaheguru, this is really tough. Like, can you kind of keep us in your sharan? Can you kind of take us into your embrace and just help us to have the strength and courage to deal with whatever comes? I think that's what it was, that ability to access that inner power that sometimes I don't connect to or can't connect to when there's a lot of fear and all the other difficult emotions. But to be able to connect, like you said, to that being that is all powerful, is the epitome of kind of strength and kindness and all of those qualities that I want to bring into me and that I need in this difficult time.
Yeah. And I think it reminds me of like the saying that we know already. I think all of us know about, just like duck and suck. Like, isn't it just amazing though? Like in sad times, in difficult times, like it becomes so much easier to do Bart, to do Simran, to do anything that connects you with God. It's amazing, really. So it's like in the difficult times when you're really like up against it. This is when you remember Vaheguru, and so in some ways, like, this is quite a special time, without sounding like cliche or not really appreciating how difficult some people have it right now and have had it. But I often think that we do have time, and I surprised myself last week by doing something that I've never done, so doing some Bart that I've never done. It's not amazing. It is for me though. And I did have time, and I could make that time. If I wasn't in lockdown, I could very easily make that time, but I haven't until last week. And I think it's I don't know, I hope that stuff stays, really. I hope the need for that connection stays, and you know, just, this is a really important time. It's a very difficult time, but it is really important to do something like connecting with whatever faith you believe in, whatever you believe in, full stop, really. It's about that connection, about your values, about the things that really matter.
I guess as you guys were all talking, I was just thinking about actually my own, and I think there's something around Sikhism is like it's simple, isn't it? It's a very peaceful religion, and I think the whole word Sikhism is about learning. And I think as you guys were talking, I was thinking about my overload of my brain in terms of learning everything about COVID, but then actually just thinking, we can't obviously do anything about COVID or if it's going to happen or not. What we can do is obviously just have our connection in terms of our relationship with death and where we are in terms of that journey. Because actually that's when we actually are, or from what I know, it's like that's when our life begins after death. So it's really around actually, you know, to get to there, what is it that we need to be thinking of in ourselves? And I think as all of you guys were sitting there, like we all work in the health system. And then I was trying to think about all the things that we've done in, you know, as a community to help with COVID, whether it's the Lunga, the Seva, the groups getting together, helping the elderly, helping the vulnerable.
This as well,
And there's something about, not proud, because that's not the right word, I think. There's something about just reminding ourselves that actually this is what Sikhi is about. And I think as you guys were sitting here talking, I was thinking about, because everything's been stopped, you know, weddings and parties and functions, and actually the core roots of everything is about the religion. Everything else is just cultural. And so I hope it's reminded people that actually about their religion. I don't know whether I'm making sense. But for me, it's just been a reminder that actually myself, and even at work, I've made a deliberate attempt to change my care notes. It's the same as Rio at work, to make sure I've got core in there, because before it was Sapinda Bogle because it's too big. But I've just said, you need to add it in, please. I don't know how you find it, but add in core. My ancestors were killed and blah, blah, blah. We fought battles to get here. So it's really important. You can take out my last name, just make sure you have core in there. So as you guys were talking, I was just thinking about the little things that I've done to make sure, that obviously, I'll go with the word proud, because that's the only one I can think of that I'm like proud to be Sikh.
Yeah, I think it sounds like for most of us here, that faith has taken, there's only 4 of us, I make it sound as if there's like 50 of us, but faith has kind of taken a bit more of a center stage in our life, hasn't it? Because when everything goes to a standstill and then you're faced with death, right, which is what Billy was talking about when we previously spoke about this, you kind of realize that there was more to life than just what it was. You know, just the kind of, obviously not just, but the work, the focus on the family, the focus on like shopping, whatever, hobbies, all of that. So you kind of, I don't know, for me, I kind of forgot that wasn't everything, you know, that there was more than that. And it's only when, you know, this COVID happened that I realized that, okay, so now death is in the picture. Okay, now I remember that my whole purpose was to connect with Vaheguru, because when I remember death, then I remember that my life here is not permanent. And so all of the stuff that I'm doing isn't as essential or actually helping me to fulfill my true purpose. It's necessary and it's a wonderful part of being alive and, you know, being human, but it's not the thing that's going to take me to my ultimate purpose, which is to be Vaheguru in this life.
But, you know, when you talk about death, I'm always reminded that this isn't real anyway, is it? Does that make sense? All this materialism and stuff, it's just way beyond us. But we ain't going with any of this stuff. We ain't going with our cars, you know, our kind of luxury items or whatever. We're going out this world literally like that, without any of this.
There's a saying in Gurbani, in the Shabad, isn't it? You come naked and you go naked, because actually all of the stuff that you acquire and you accumulate and you perceive to be yours and part of your identity isn't really.
No.
It's just
strip it all back. It's not ours. It's not who we are at all.
And I think Sangat is really key to this, because as you guys were talking, I just, like, my husband's voice was just in my head, as it normally is. But he really
Wish my husband's voice was in my head.
no, you really don't wish that, Sikhi. But he really, like, I mean, even before the pandemic, he would say, you know, do you think you're ready? And he's talking about death, so we talk about death semi-regularly for various reasons. But he would make me question, and then when I really thought about it, I would be really scared, actually. Scared because, no, I'm not ready for it. No, I've not done nearly enough of what I think I should be doing, or anything that is mildly on the path of where I want to be. And so, but it's been a different kind of conversation now, still about death, but about actually, I feel like I am not anywhere near it, but I feel a bit more like I'm doing something that will count towards it. Someone recently told me about you putting things away in the bank, and I haven't really seen it like that. And then I came across like a Gurbani like a sentence about you banking away, like the Simran, all these things that I've never really thought about it like that. So that was quite helpful, and then it makes it a little bit more tangible, a little bit more concrete in my mind. And I think that's actually really helped me. Not that I'm like, oh, look at all this that I've got in my bank.
Got loads.
But it does feel a bit like, a bit more like I'm not like at a zero. I might be closer to zero than anywhere else, but still.
But you have something.
Yeah.
You have a bank. You have a bank at least. Yeah.
A sense of a course of action. Like Sikhi for me has given me a course of action in this situation where I feel like, what the hell is going on? And, it's all very scary, and there's an illness everywhere and death around me. So what can I do? And because Sikhi outlines what the purpose of our life is and how to achieve that, it gives me a course of action, like Vindi's saying, doing far to, understanding what Gurbani is saying, doing Simran, kind of like banking it. For me, I like the idea of when we're doing Simran, where as we do more and more Simran, we're deepening our connection with ourselves. And through doing that, we are then, that's the path, that kind of awareness of self. I don't know.
Like mindfulness, kind of our mindset's very different, isn't it?
Yeah, or kind of just going inwards and beginning the journey inwards, So Gurbani is kind of, they say, Gurmukh hove so kaya khojai. Kaya is the body, like the beginning of the khojana of the body, like the journey towards discovering what's inside.
I'm just reminded of your conversation that I had with someone I'm working with at the moment, that she actually asked me that, how do I make sense of suffering and pain, and just generally about kind of about pain really, and kind of adversity. And I said I have my faith, that helps me, what you just said, go inwards, to help me make sense of all what's happening in my life. When an adverse event happens in my life, I'm just as much prepared now. I wasn't prepared before, but I know that this is not permanent. This life is not permanent. This is not permanent. Anything could happen at any one point. Something
about what both of you said about so when we go inwards, like we do in therapy, and Maharaj says that everyone is Maharaj, like that we are all one in the same. And so if you're going inwards, you're actually still searching, aren't you? You're searching, yes, to know yourself, but also to know your belief, your faith, your God, really, Guru. So by doing that, you are becoming closer to God, and that ties in with self-care, which is quite, and Sikhi, you talked a lot about this before, haven't you, about this kind of white person's version of what self-care is. But if we look at it like that, that becomes really much more accessible to like the faith side of things, or the more spiritual side, that it's not about being selfish at all.